Ed, is this going to be recorded anywhere where we can go back and listen to it again?
Yeah, as soon as we get started. Oh, Tim just did it for me. Yeah, so this session is being recorded, and we put all of our recordings on a TLTC webpage that we maintain, and we'll also post that to YouTube. And I'll give you a quick link at the end of the session to where those are. So that will be the newest recording, but then all of our past webinars, all the way going back to the spring semester when we went to our remote teaching last spring. All of those webinars we've just got maintained there. So we have 15 webinars that we're doing this week that we don't suggest any person come to all 15 of them. We suggest you look through it and kind of pick and choose what's good for you. When we look at this webinar, this is going to be more of like our how-to type webinar. I'm going to pull up Blackboard and I'm just going to go click by click, talking through it, explaining what I'm doing. Other webinars that we've got going are very much a conversation where we're talking about like, how do you engage students? How do you assess student work? And so we try to do a good mixture of all those throughout the week.
Thanks.
Great.
So, shall we get started? If we're looking at this list of things to do, just think to yourself, how many of these can you do already? How many of these would you feel pretty comfortable doing? And look around and say like, okay, which one of these should I pay extra attention to? Just, being aware of what we're going to cover before we do is just a good way to start thinking about learning a new thing. I'm not going to ask anybody to share how many they feel like they can do or feel like they need help on. I'm just asking you to think about it. So the PowerPoint is right in the chat. If you want to keep looking at this list and use it like a checklist as you want, you can open it for yourself right in PowerPoint. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'm going to get us to start looking at Blackboard.
Ed?
Yes?
I'm sorry, but you said that we could look at that at the same time in the PowerPoint. Is there an easy way of doing that? Or
so what I did is I put the PowerPoint in the chat. So if you go to the chat and you click on that thing, it'll open up in PowerPoint for you. Then it would be up to you whether you can, make it small enough that you can still see your team screen and see it at the same time. I don't know, how big of a monitor you have or anything.
And I see the PowerPoint in the chat.
Great.
I do not see it in the chat.
Oh, you do not see it?
No. I see organizing your course.
Yeah, that's the link. So you have to click on that link and then open it in your PowerPoint.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so it says organize your course, but when you click on it, there's probably like a little PowerPoint logo, which is the P.
Right.
So when you click on that, that should open in PowerPoint.
And we should be able to make it small enough.
Yeah, that would be up to you if you can, kind of control the size of the window and, kind of move it up to the side to then be able to see both at the same time.
Well,
if you're not able to do that, you can just follow along with what I'm doing. Maybe that was a silly suggestion.
Ed, I now I'm in the PowerPoint, but I've lost you and everybody else.
So at the bottom of your screen, maybe try to find the Teams icon that looks like a T with two people next to it in purple, and click on that and see if that pops up the shared screen.
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
So maybe I'll just forget about the PowerPoint. Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to come over here and I'm just in what I call a sandbox course. and it's just a dummy course that I often use to play with or look at other features. And when we're looking at Blackboard, we have our navigation menu on the left-hand side, and then we have down the middle, we have our actual Blackboard content. Up over here on the top, we've got a couple important buttons. And the first thing that I want to show you is the edit button. Right here, I have editing on. And you can tell I have edited on because there's that green dot and it says on it. If I were to click that, it would turn to editing off, and my view of Blackboard changes a little bit. Right now, I can't add anything to the content area. I can't edit this menu on the left-hand side. I'm seeing this very similar to how a student would see my Blackboard page. So if we're just beginning with Blackboard, one of the first things you have to start getting awareness of is this edit button on the top right corner, because switching this is what lets you edit Blackboard. Now the edit mode is on, you can see I have a menu that pops up right here where I can add new things into Blackboard. And over here on the left-hand side, I've got an additional plus button that lets me change this menu right here. So
I'm
that's
sorry,
that edit
what was
button.
that button you said? I'm sorry.
What did you
What's
say,
the
Janet?
button that lets you change the left-hand part?
Yeah, so if the edit button is turned on,
Right.
then this plus button appears right here
Okay, thank you.
that lets me add things to the menu. I got a little request to make my screen a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to zoom in using my browser controls. Who asked for that? Is that better?
I did. It's a little bit better.
Great. Okay, good.
Not a lot. I can't read on the far
I
left hand
can't make
side.
it too much bigger because then Blackboard will like change what it's looking at. So I'll try. This is about as big as I can make it.
Okay, thank you.
So that's that edit button. Remember when I said if you turn edit off, it goes to just about what students see. It looks more like what students see. Just to the left of the edit button, there is this little button that looks like an eyeball with arrows surrounding it, and that's the student preview button. If you want to see your course exactly how students see it, you would have to click this enter student preview button, and I'm just going to do that right now. When we're in student preview, we get this yellow banner across the top that says student preview mode is on. And then we see the course exactly the way a student sees the course, including if you want to see what it's like to submit an assignment in Blackboard, you could turn on the student preview button and you can go and see exactly what it's like to submit an assignment in Blackboard. Normally, these are like the screens that aren't available to you as the instructor. If you wanted to see a quiz exactly the way your students see the quiz, that's another good use of that student preview mode. So I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to go say an exit preview. And just say like what we've gone over so far is the edit mode on and off, and then the student preview button right here in the top right corner, the one that looks like the eyeball that lets you see it just like a student would see your course. So my first thing on my list of things that I want to be able to do is I want to be able to edit this navigation menu on the left-hand side. So since I want to be able to do that, I'm going to turn that edit mode on. And then I'm going to start looking at what I've got over here. On this left-hand side, each one of these links will have a drop-down menu directly to the right of it. Any existing link will have that drop-down menu to the right. but that menu only appears when I'm hovering over. So like if I look at information, which is right below where my mouse is right now, I don't have that little arrow that's a drop down menu to the right of it. But if I start to hover my mouse over the information, now that arrow appears and I'm able to do a couple things with it. I could change that link. I could give it a new name. I could either hide or show the link, and that will change depending on the current behavior of the link, or I could delete a link. So I'm going to look at this content area that's right here. Every Blackboard course starts with a content area, and right now this content area is shown to students. If I wanted to hide this area from students, I could click on this drop down right here, and I could click on hide link, and a little new icon shows up right to the right of the name of the link. You see there's that little box with just a cross outline through it. And that's the Blackboard's icon to let you know that this content area is hidden from the students. So if I'm looking at this list right here, I can see make an appointment office hours is currently hidden from students. The content area is hidden from students, information, groups, tools, achievements. If I go to any of these ones that are currently hidden and hit that drop down area, instead of saying hide link, this one says show link instead. And if I click on show, that icon will disappear and it will be available to students. So if I'm looking at this link, this thing down the side right here, there are some things that I might not be using. I might not be using some of the tools of Blackboard, and I might want to either hide them or just delete them and get rid of them. And that might be one of the first things to do when you get that new course that Blackboard creates for you. So in this course, I don't have any intention to use the groups. So I'm just going to go over here, and not only do I not want to use it, I don't think I'm ever going to use Blackboard groups. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. Okay. It says, are you sure you want to delete it? It's already hidden. And I can delete it, and it will be gone. Now, one of the things that makes me feel okay about deleting things that I'm not using from this Blackboard group is I know that I can put the same things back up again. I can add these back. So I'm going to go to this plus sign in the top left corner, and that's how I add things into a Blackboard course. And I'm going to focus right here on these three things: the tool link, the web link, or the course link. Those are the main three ways I'm going to add content into my Blackboard course. I'm going to open up Tool Link first. And Blackboard tools are links to the main area of a tool that's in Blackboard. When I say a tool that's in Blackboard, I mean something like Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Okay, Blackboard Collaborate Ultra is one of the ways that you can meet with your students synchronously. And if I wanted to add a link right to my left-hand menu to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, I can. So I chose from the drop-down menu Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. I also have to name it, and I normally name it unoriginally exactly what the type of link is. And then there's a little checkbox to make it say, do you want it to be available to users as soon as you create it? And I'm going to say yes. If I didn't click it, it would just come up as hidden, and that's no problem because we know how to make things hidden or available to our students. But I'm just going to, just for simplicity, I'm going to make sure that that's clicked. So I added that in, and now to the bottom of my list, I have that new link to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. Anything that's in this order, I can drag and drop and move it To do that, I have to go all the way to the left of the button, and you see there's this little icon with arrows pointing up and down. I have to actually click on that and pull it up. So now I have a link to Blackboard Collaborate Ultra that I can manipulate and move around. And if I click on it, it brings me right to the home page for Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. That will include my course room and where I can create new sessions. Okay, so just like the tool that I deleted to start this conversation was the groups tool. And I said, if I wanted to bring it back, I certainly could. So here's the groups tool, and I could add that back very easily where I had deleted that from my group or from my menu. Okay, so the tools link are features inside of Blackboard, and a tool link will bring you to like that features homepage. So when I go to Blackboard Collaborate, here's the central page that is all of Blackboard Collaborate. The one that is very commonly used, this discussion board tool link, brings you to the homepage for all of your discussions in Blackboard. That's one of those that is in there by default. One of the ones that I often like to add for a tool link is I often like to add a link to announcements. Some of these other things kind of can clutter up space or take up a lot of space, but I always like to have my announcements where students can find them really easily. If I'm using the Blackboard announcements feature, I want them to have those be kind of front and center. So I'm going to put the announcements link in here. So what I'm saying here is you can add or delete things from this menu. And my advice always is delete the things that you aren't going to use and prioritize the things that you are going to use in this menu. So if you are going to use the announcements all the time, go ahead and put that quick link to announcements, because that will make a place where so the students will get it in their email every time you send an announcement, and then a quick place where all of those will be kept. I'm going to go back to this plus menu, and we've talked a lot about tool links. That's like if you want to go to the main page for discussions, for announcements, for Blackboard Collaborate. The next one down this list is a web link. This is if I want to bring students to something outside of Blackboard. So when I do a web link, that means it's just a URL or a website that I want to give my students access to, that I want them to always be there. Again, I would be pretty picky about this. I would only put kind of things that are very important into this list, because you can see from mine, my menu got pretty long pretty quick, and I want to keep this list as useful as it can be by prioritizing things that I want students to have available to them all the time. So web link is for outside things that I want to add to this list. And then the final thing out of this is a course link. A course link is something that already exists in Blackboard, something that you've already put in another location of Blackboard, but you want to add a link to that. So I'm going to click on course link, and you have to click on the browse button. And what it will do is it will show you a list of everything inside your Blackboard course. There'll be all the discussions that you have. It could be the it could be files that you've uploaded. It could be different things. So, you know, what would be a file that is so important that you want it to be on that left-hand side of your be on the left-hand side of your navigation menu and always available to students? Maybe like a syllabus, maybe like a document that has the class schedule and due dates all in it. That, you know, those types of things that you want always available. Maybe it's a discussion board where you've asked students to post all their questions, like an ask a question discussion board. You know, those are the types of things that we might always want to be available. So I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing people ask some questions. And one of the questions that came up is, well, what if I wanted to add a link right to my Teams area? Maybe I'm not using Blackboard Collaborate Ultra, but I'm kind of following the advice that we're getting this semester, which is to kind of migrate things and use Teams instead of Blackboard Collaborate. And I want to add a link to my Teams meeting area. That's something that we could easily do inside of Blackboard Collaborate. And what we would do to do that is we would go and get our URL for our Teams meeting. So I'm just going to go into one of the meetings that we have planned for this week, and I'm just going to copy and paste the URL for my Teams meeting. This is the recurring meeting. We use like for this week, we're using the same link over and over again. So I just copied the URL there, and then I'm going to go back to Blackboard, and I'm going to add a web link, and I'm just going to carefully paste my long Teams meeting. And because I've done that web link, now that will be available to my students as just another place where they could click and start class. So that's something you could use that web link tool for. So if I were to stop for a second, anybody want to turn on their microphone and ask any questions or anything about here? At this point, we've done two things off of our checklist. We've talked about how we can edit this navigation menu, and I've tried to go through the difference between tool link, web link, and course link that are the three ways to add links into that menu.
Yes, Ed, I have a question. How do I know what the link is for my class?
You know, Janet, we're running a session at 1 p.m. today that is called Getting Started
Okay,
with
I'll be there. Thank you.
Microsoft Teams.
I'll be there.
You know, we're going to teach you how to set up your class so that all of your students will get an invitation and it will be in their Outlook calendar. We can put the link back in Blackboard, and then it will be available in your Teams area that's automatically created for you. So that's kind of the focus at 1 o'clock. But the quick answer is, you know, just, you know, we're focusing on the web link right now.
Okay.
And what that does and how to organize. So one of the things that we can add in Blackboard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I raised the hand, but you don't see it.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and take your mic and talk.
Okay. What if I plan to teach in the Blackboard, and I would like to put similar thing, the URL for Blackboard on Teams, because I have a class created and rosters are linked, but I don't plan to use it for teaching, at least not today. So is it possible to do it kind of in opposite way, that I have link back to Blackboard from Teams?
That's not quite as easy to do, to link back from Teams to Blackboard. But what I think I heard you say is you don't intend to use your Microsoft Teams?
I plan to use it for office hours, for meetings with students, but so far I don't plan to teach. If I can avoid teaching on Teams, I wouldn't.
Okay, so Chilton, help me out here. If they just copy this web link right here, could they just add that right to Teams? Will that work for them? And for students to log in and they go directly to the class?
As long as they are logged into Blackboard and as long as they're in that course, then yes, I believe that's how we've been able to do it.
Yeah. You know, Blackboard is our primary system. And so I don't know that you have to do that, but you could try to put that link in there. The students should be using Blackboard for the majority of their classes, so that's normally not, our experience. One of the things that we, they have this My Courses menu where they will have their current courses. I think Blackboard, because they're using it for all their classes, it's worth them learning how to navigate it and not be dependent on you having that link in your Teams area. So, any other questions before I move on?
Just a question. So just because team class was created, so I made sessions and I put an announcement that I will be teaching on Blackboard. Is it enough?
I would go ahead and email your class before the start of class, especially since we're starting completely online, with just a welcome and a introduction of how you're going to get where you need to be for the first class. I would just get that right to their inbox, maybe a week before class. With just those explicit directions. And the way I would do that would be through the announcements feature.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and here's the reason why, when you send out an announcement, it will go to their email if you click that, send immediately to students' email box. And then it also gets archived in the class. And that's one of the reasons why I always add this announcements page, is so that if students add the class late, maybe they add the class after you've sent out that announcement, it's still like archived here, and with all of the information that you put in that class announcement, especially if it's like, hey, here's how you're going to join the first meeting that we have. That's one of the reasons why I always do that, do it through announcements. And so I would do it just right here. I turned editing on, I clicked create announcement, and I would just make sure that this little box right here that says send a copy of this announcement immediately is clicked, so it goes right to their email. That way you've told them in 2 places, and it's a little bit harder for students to slip through the cracks. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying there might not be a student that slips through the cracks, but I'm saying that if we put it in 2 places, it makes it a little bit harder to slip through the cracks.
Ed, with regard to announcements, where does it say create announcements? Where is that?
So I went to the
Okay.
announcement.
And when you create an announcement, do you fill in the title just as though it were an email?
Yep, this subject becomes the subject line of the email, and if I'm looking at the announcements page, it becomes bold and big right at the top.
Okay.
And that's how it looks. And then if this turns into an email, it will, say Blackboard announcement and then welcome to the class, and get sent right to the students' email addresses.
Well, it automatically does turn into an email, right? So it's just like writing an email, except you say create announcement.
Yep, you go to create announcement, and then I always make sure that I click this link that says email announcement and make sure that that is checked, because that sends it right away.
And where do students find the old announcements?
So that's why I add that announcements tool link right to my left-hand menu. And one of the things that I'm going to go over at the end of class, I like to sometimes even change the landing page of Blackboard, so that the first thing they get to when they open up my class is my announcements page. So the last email I sent them will be right on top.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So if there's no more questions, I'm going to move on. Otherwise, just speak right up. Okay, hearing none. The next part is I want to talk a little bit about the content folder in Blackboard. In Blackboard, typically one folder gets created, and that's called the content folder. And that's where we start to pile in everything we need for the year. And one of our pieces of advice from the TLTC is to create several content folders to build your things in, and to organize those content folders by module, by time, by chunk of material. So what I mean by that is some people create a module folder for each week. That would be making a lot of folders over the course of the semester. And you can see I just used that drop down menu to the right of it, and I started to say rename. And I'm just going to name it week 1, my first topic. I could have, I don't have a real course that I'm teaching right here. But here I've written week 1, my first topic, and now I have that thing in here. This doesn't have to be organized by weeks. Maybe you organize your class into 3 exams. You've got 3 exams that you do throughout the semester, and you want all of the content leading to exam 1 in one folder, all the content. So you end up with 3 different content areas. That's fine. Maybe you're doing a lot on Blackboard. If you have a really involved Blackboard class that has a lot of different things, a lot of things for students to do, a lot of things for them to watch, maybe you do want to organize into those weeks. But I'm just focused right now on just creating these extra areas. And to do that, I'm going to go over to this plus menu on the top, and I'm going to say create a new content area. And that creates another folder just like that original content folder. I'm going to name it week 2, my second topic. It gets created, it gets added to the bottom of the list. I know that if I go all the way to the left and click on this yellow icon with the arrows going up or down, I can drag that and organize it. So now I have 2 content areas, my first topic, my second topic, and I could keep doing that by keep adding new content areas as we go down the page. This will be the last one, just so you don't have to watch me make a ton of these. Okay. So I'm adding these extra topic areas, and the reason we do this is in Blackboard, students often find or often tell us that they can't find everything that they need to do, especially if your course is organized in a different way other than by time. I'm going to get out of my sandbox course. And I'm just going to show you our best practices course that some people in this group have taken and some people haven't taken, and just show what a course could look like. Here I have, this is a 4-week course, so we ended up creating 4 modules, and we just use that word: modules, weeks, units, chapters, whatever you feel like describes what you're trying to do. I think people who are a little more comfortable with online learning tend to gravitate towards that language of modules. But here's what I've done to organize. My course is linear, top to bottom. What you need to do in this course is start your way at the top and do everything going down. So if I've got a video I want students to watch before they do a reading, before they get to a discussion board or activity, I want the students to be able to just go from top to bottom and do things right in order, one after the other. One of the things we do is we create a checklist right in here of what things are due and what needs to be done. And so what we've done in here is we've made those individual content areas and made them available to the students so that they can kind of work through each of these top to bottom. Now, you can see in this course, this ends up being a pretty long page, because this was a fully online course that students did asynchronously. So they needed a little bit extra. They needed all the directions. In online learning, we have to make the directions just super clear to students to try to avoid them having that panic or that confusion. So we've tried to do that where we've said, okay, here's everything you need to do in this course. For those of you that are teaching synchronously online, maybe you don't feel like you need to have all of the discussion and exposition and the directions that we do here. But I still think that the organization that we're trying to do here still has value. So in here, and I know we're mixing words a little bit, but I've done this by adding a content area. There is below here module page and blank page. And I don't typically use these in Blackboard, but I will explain what they are. The module page in Blackboard, what that means is that default landing page that has the little blocks that you can add different things to. So I'm going to just add an example module page, and then I will show it to you. So here is a module page. It's that default page where you can add, alerts or add a dictionary or add the needs your attention notifications, and it ends up being in this kind of grid view. That's not what we mean when we say modules. That's the difference between modules and content areas. When we say like, oh, we want a place where we want to build other stuff, this is a content area. So that is going through here. And the last thing on here is a blank page. And I just want to say that this, again, is one of the tools that I typically don't use. When it says a blank page, this means I can create an entire web page in HTML and add pictures and text to it. And that's not typically what people want when they build more content in Blackboard. Typically, they want to have that menu where they can add Blackboard assignments, Blackboard discussion boards. They can upload files. You can't upload a file here. You can't do those things. So again, this is what I kind of avoid, these ones. So if I'm looking at this area, I always skip module page and blank page. I just add content areas. To me, it's a little bit easier. Okay.
Can I ask a question real quickly?
Yeah, sure.
What is the module page designed to do for anyone? It must have a function that they made it a major choice there. Is it more specific to a particular kind of a course or something? I'm just wondering why one would choose it.
So if I go to my, when your default class, the way it originally gets made, it has that home page.
Mm-hmm.
It's normally the top left link.
Mm-hmm.
I delete that page so often.
It may not be important, but it just seems like, well, there it is. What is this for? And I've been trying to figure this out for years.
No, yeah. Okay, here's a course that hasn't deleted that home page, so that module page is right here. So it could have a to-do list.
Okay.
Right on here, and this is being dynamically generated from if you put due dates in the Blackboard, or if you put due dates on your assignments or discussion boards, it will show up in this to-do list. If you've got announcements, the header only of the announcement will show up here. If you add tasks into my tasks, they will show up right here. So
the course landing page, only there's one for each module, is that?
No, it is exactly like the course landing page.
Okay, but it is a separate page within the course, those module pages.
Yep.
Okay. So it's a way to sort of really separate the modules as almost like a mini course within a larger course, it sounds.
No.
No.
The module page still just pulls from the same thing. So what you would be doing is you would be creating like a second home page.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Mhm.
So that's it'd be a way to add it back if you deleted your home page.
Oh,
The
okay.
reason I don't like it, I'll be completely honest, is the module page only works if you go through and set it up exactly with the way the original, designers of Blackboard intended it to be set up.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So this to-do list is great if you go through and put, the correct due date on every assignment and every discussion board, and it will show up there. And you can say, oh, what's due, or look at the calendar. But if you haven't done that, it becomes just a clutter place. So that's why, and I'm just going to, skip around in what I had intended to show you a little bit. That's why, because, and this might be just my own bias and my teaching style, but since I actually do announcements and send the announcements all the time, that's a lot of times why I delete the home page that gets created by default and I replace it with the announcements page, because I know I actually am doing that and I'm sending out those weekly so that students have that, and I want them to see the full text of my announcement, right where, when they log in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you down at customization. There's a menu all the way down here that's called teaching style.
Where is this?
And one of the things on the teaching style menu is you can set what the entry point to your class is. What we mean by entry point is when students click the link and come into your class every day, where do they land? And so what I often do, if I'm using that announcements feature, I make the announcements page my landing page. That way, when they click the link and come into class, they land right on the most recent email I sent them. So that it's always, and the newer emails just end up on top, and then older emails are right below them. So, you're looking at it, and the last thing that I've sent you, the last set of directions, the last thing that I sent the class will be right there for them to look at. And that's one of the reasons I like to do that, is to make those announcements even more prominent, because I know students sometimes have a hard time finding them in their email. And again, it's just me trying to reinforce, the same information in a couple different places, even if it is exactly the same.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I didn't even realize you could disappear the homepage, and I'm glad to hear it. Thanks.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I do. I delete the home page, and then I'll just go through this one more time very quickly. I go down to this badly named option called teaching style. It's not really about teaching style, but if I go down to teaching style, I can change entry point, and this list will only have things that are already in this menu on the left hand side. So if I don't see announcements yet, it might mean that I have to go up here to this plus button, add that tool link to announcements, and then I can go down here and add announcements right to my as my entry point. Okay, so we focused a lot of time right now on kind of organizing our course and organizing this left-hand menu, just to try to make things like really clear or really available to students. If I'm looking at this one that we've kind of set up as kind of best practices, we have one that's named Start Here. How to get started in my course. And in here, we've got a video of how to navigate around the course. And remember, this is set up as a fully online course where we would never have a face-to-face or screen-to-screen or mask-to-mask meeting area. And this is where we try to cover a lot of the things that typically would be covered on syllabus day, quite frankly. So I think it's really important to help students navigate your course and help students find the things in your course, even when we try to lay them out very logically, to try to let them, get into your mind and let them understand what you were thinking when you set up that course. We did it through a video right here. But for those of you that are teaching synchronously, that might be right on syllabus day. Where you say, hey, let me take a second. Let me show you my course in Blackboard. Let me show you where you're going to be turning things in and where you're going to be able to find things. We made a checklist of things to do to help get started in the class. And if you look at this checklist, we actually made it in the same order as this menu on the left-hand side. So what's the first thing they should do? We wanted them to find the announcements and read the welcome to class menu. So we're just teaching them to work their way down this left-hand menu. We asked them to go to the course info and find the syllabus. We asked them to download and to keep it. And so right here, I've got course info that I've added. And if I went here and looked at this, the syllabus is going to be right here and information about how to contact me because I was teaching this course. Continuing down this start here side, the third thing to do, we wanted them to find the virtual office. Now, it's something that we always advise people to do is figure out a communication plan for your class. Figure out how they can ask you questions so that you don't get never-ending emails at all hours of the night all the time. So what we did in this class is we created a virtual office where they could ask a question and we could respond to that answer in a place that their other students could see it. That way the same question doesn't keep getting asked over and over again and you feel like you have to respond to it. When this works well, it's fantastic. When this works well, it's great because it gives students a place where they can ask questions and not and have the answers be public. When it doesn't work well, it's when we don't emphasize it, when students don't use it, when students don't find it, and you still get all the questions by email anyway. And I know sometimes some classes dive right in and use the virtual office, and it helps everybody. Some classes, they'll just keep emailing you. The only way that I have found to make it work is to emphasize the virtual office, to answer questions quickly when they are put in the virtual office. That way people who try it get that positive reinforcement. But we've heard from people that it's a hit or miss thing. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And then the last thing in this start here, we just asked them to go and start to do their first assignments. So that's how we organized this course. You can see we've got the modules here. And one of the last things that I want to go through is just how to add either files or text right on the page or content right to a Blackboard course. So I'm going to go into this build content menu. And I'm going to go and talk about these first two things, an item or a file. If you look at this right here, where I have a little bit of text and it's right on the Blackboard page, I've done that through building an item. When we go and say build content and select item from the list, what we get is an opportunity to put a little bit of HTML right on the page, just a little bit of plain text. And we have a toolbar here where we can do some basic things with it. We can create bigger text. We can create headings. We have a lot of the same tools as we have in Microsoft Word, and including some other things. So there's a place here where you could add math, for example, if you needed to add something, a math expression or something like that. And one of the things that we can do in here is add HTML code from other places on the internet. And I'm just going to use as my example YouTube, because this is the way we suggest to embed videos into Blackboard. And I am just going to pick this video right here. Disney's upcoming WandaVision television show. It comes out on Friday. The first 2 episodes. I'm very excited for it. It's one of the things I'm most excited about for this week. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy this embed video code right here. And I'm going to copy that full code, all this HTML. I don't have to really understand what it's saying, but I can come back over here and there's this little button right here, which says source code. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to paste that code that I got from YouTube. And you can see that video that was there on YouTube, I can put directly in Blackboard. And when I press submit, it will show up at the bottom of my list. What I like about embedding videos like that is I can play it right from here without leaving the page. All my YouTube controls that I'm pretty familiar with are right here. So I can enter full screen if I want and then go back. And because YouTube handles all my captioning, my captioning for my ADA compliance will be right there. The other way that we stream videos at Oneonta is through Microsoft Stream. And I'm just going to show you Microsoft Stream because just like YouTube, it has the same share buttons where we can download that iframe code so that we can put that into our Blackboard. So I'm just going to go to my content and I'm just going to find a video. I've got a lot of junk videos here because I've been training people on how to record. So I'm just going to take this first one. And here I was in one of the dual modality classrooms and we were playing with the whiteboard. And so down here underneath, just like YouTube had a share button, I have a similar share button. And just like YouTube had the option of just, the direct link to the video, but also has the embed option. And just like that, I have the full iframe code right here. So I can just copy that full iframe code. And add it in here just like I did for the YouTube. I'll show you that just because it's important. I would go to build content. If I want a little bit of text or a little bit of HTML on the page, I use the item tool. And from this screen, I have to find the HTML button, which looks like 2 carrots right here. If I don't see that button, sometimes when I come into Blackboard for the first time, I only see a single line of buttons, but this 3 dots is the More Buttons button, and clicking the More Buttons button gives me all of them. And then HTML is that little button right here with the 2 carrots that we write code in. So I'll put that in there, I'll copy paste, and I will save. And then I will have that from that Microsoft Stream. Here's me in that dual modalities classroom drawing on the board using a whiteboard. Okay. So embedding videos sometimes one of the harder things to do. Let's say I just wanted to add a file to this. right here. Say I had a syllabus file or a file of directions for an assignment. I would just have to give it a name, and then I could just use this button right here that says browse, and I could upload that file right to Blackboard. Okay.
Ed, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you go back to the item and show us how to do it through an item? Because I have an agenda or like a checklist, but I want to put the file that they need to do it right in that item list.
Yeah, and I tend to prefer to actually add my files through items as well, because then I can just kind of tell, it lets me put like a description of the file in addition to the file. So let's pretend this is a syllabus. Okay, and the reason I did it through an item instead is I want to be able to add has all important due dates and class policies. Let's pretend that's the extra information I wanted to have in there. If I just keep scrolling a little bit down, there's attachments right here. And if I were a person that likes to drag and drop to add files, if I drag a file into this dotted line, it will turn purple and I can just drag and drop and it will end up there. Or if I'm a person that tends to like to go through my file manager the way I'm more comfortable with it and say browse local files, I could do it like that. This is a So I've added this file to it. It shows right here. By default, it will have whatever the link was, but I could even change it at this time if I wanted to. If I wanted to change the file name from what it was on my computer, I could do it right here, and then I could say submit, and it will show up at the bottom of my page. There's my file. So it gives me a title. It will have the attached files, and then I could have written something about it, that I wanted to add or describe for this class. Just like the menu, if I go all the way to the left-hand side, I can drag and drop and move and reorder these by going all the way to the left and clicking on where it's yellow.
Ed, is there a way to embed them? I know how to do that, but is there a way to, like, where you put class policies, is there a way to put the link right next to that? I know that may sound like a silly question.
I think there is, but I think it often breaks for me. That's how what I just showed you is how I would do it. Because I think you can create a link in here, but I wouldn't.
Do you mean just including a link in an item or, some document right in the body of the text?
I think what the
'Cause I do
person
that all
is
the time.
asking for is, can I
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
can I
Like,
get the link
in the
to
body of the
this?
text that, like, right next to like I want to do a to-do list, and then if there's a file next to it, I want to put it like right underneath on under a bullet. Or
I do that all the time. Just put a link in, like right there.
And then,
but that's only if I have a URL. So I can't. What happens if I have a file that I want to do that with? Or can I link it to the course? Could I put a course link in there?
Hey Ed, if you go to the plus sign, the circle plus sign, and add, it's under that now. So the bottom plus sign of add, what's it called now? Add content. So in the toolbar, that circle, yeah.
Yeah.
Insert local files.
Yep.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Okay, let's see how that worked out. That's what you wanted?
Oops. Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so it's the end of our time together. I'm going to stick around, and while I'm sticking around, I'm just going to throw back up that one slide thing that says things I should be able to do. And if anybody wants to ask questions, I'll stick around and answer all the questions you can. And if anybody wants to get out of here, have a good day. And maybe we'll see you at one of our later sessions.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, bye everybody.
Thank you, Ed.